Chapter 18. The Empty Village. The village was supposed to be routine. Commander Thrace had briefed us in her office. The space was austere, functional. Maps covering the walls marked with corrupted zones and patrol routes. Her desk bare except for a single crystal tablet. She stood behind it, arms crossed, assessing us with the clinical precision of someone calculating acceptable losses.
Disturbance reported 3 days ago in Millbrook Village,
she said.
Likely nothing. Spooked civilians mistaking normal phenomena for chaos corruption.
She paused, let the silence stretch.
Normally this would be assigned to a 3rd or 4th year pairing. Fully trained. Tested in field conditions.
Her eyes flicked between Dane and me.
However, certain voices within the Academy administration believe your pairing should be evaluated immediately.
The words were careful, measured. But the implication was clear. Someone wanted us to fail.
Your rotation assignment has generated considerable discussion.
Thrace continued. Her tone remained neutral, but something sharp lurked beneath it.
Some feel it's premature, that a first-year binder lacks the experience necessary to partner effectively with an instructor of Master Ashforge's caliber.
She walked around the desk, closer, her presence commanding despite her controlled demeanor.
I have been advised strongly to send you on a field assessment to determine whether this pairing demonstrates sufficient competency to continue.
A slight emphasis on advised. Almost imperceptible.
The assessment should naturally be challenging enough to provide meaningful data.
Dane's jaw tightened. He understood what she wasn't saying. Someone had forced her hand. Demanded we be sent out before we were ready. Hoping we'd prove incompatible. Hoping the pairing would dissolve.
Consider this a field assessment.
Thrace finished. Then her expression shifted. Barely. A fraction of approval breaking through the military formality.
Your synchronization scores have improved significantly, far more than certain parties anticipated.
She moved back behind her desk. Pulled up data on the crystal tablet.
In 3 weeks, you've achieved synchronization levels most rotation pairs never reach. Your convergence efficiency is notable.
She looked up. Met my eyes directly. Then Dane's.
I expect you to surpass all expectations, not just mine.
The weight of those words settled in the room. Not just her expectations. The expectations of whoever was watching. Whoever wanted us to fail. Whoever had political reasons to see this pairing destroyed before it could prove itself.
This mission is routine,
Thrace said.
Treat it as such. Document your findings. Return safely.
A pause.
And demonstrate that those who doubt this pairing's viability are incorrect in their assessment.
It wasn't quite an order, but it wasn't a suggestion either.
Dismissed.
Now we traveled together through spring countryside. The road was muddy from recent rain. Trees budding green. Birds singing like nothing was wrong. The tension between us was thick enough to choke on. We walked 3 feet apart, not touching. Hyper-aware of each other in ways that made breathing difficult.
You're quiet.
Dane said, focused.
You're always focused. This is different.
I didn't answer. What could I say? That being alone with him made my skin prickle with want? That I was fighting the urge to close those 3 feet? That our last transfer in the equipment room haunted every moment? Millbrook Village appeared around a bend. Small. Maybe 50 buildings. Farming community. Completely abandoned. Doors stood open. Swinging slightly in the breeze. Meals sat half-eaten on outdoor tables. A child's toy lay in the middle of the street. Bright cloth doll staring at nothing with button eyes. No bodies, no blood, no monsters. Just eerie, complete absence. My skin prickled with wrongness. Dane's hand tightened on Culmination's hilt. His crystalline eyes scanned for threats that refused to materialize. "This doesn't feel right," I said.
No,
He moved forward cautiously.
it doesn't.
We entered the village proper. The silence was oppressive. No birds. No wind. Just our footsteps on packed dirt and the creaking of open doors. Where did everyone go? My voice sounded too loud.
That's the question.
Dane checked inside a nearby house.
Food's fresh, maybe 2 days old at most. Whatever happened, it was recent.
I checked the neighboring building. A bakery. Bread still in the oven. Burned now. The smell acrid and wrong.
We should search systematically.
Dane said.
I'll take eastern buildings. You take western. We'll meet back at the village square in 1 hour.
Is splitting up wise?
Probably not, but we'll cover more ground.
He looked at me. Something unreadable in his expression.
Stay alert. If anything feels wrong, signal immediately.
I nodded. We split up. The western buildings yielded nothing useful. Empty homes. Abandoned shops. Signs of life interrupted, but no indication of what had interrupted it. I was checking a grain storage building when I heard the crash. Loud. Violent. The old granary structure between the eastern and western sections collapsed. Wood splintering. Dust exploding upward in a massive cloud.
Liv.
Dane's voice, sharp with concern. "I'm fine," I called back. "Are you hurt?"
No, but the collapse is blocking the main street. We'll have to circle around 1 block north. Meet at the square.
Understood. I moved through empty streets, my nerves singing with tension. Everything felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Like the village was holding its breath. I emerged into the square from the western side. Saw him coming from the opposite alley. Dane. Armor intact. Culmination sheathed. His crystalline eyes reflecting the late afternoon light. Relief flooded through me. I started forward, already reaching for him before my brain registered the wrongness. The way he moved was almost right, but not quite. Too fluid. Lacking the controlled precision that was as familiar to me as breathing. His movements had a slight jerkiness from crystallization. This figure moved like water, like shadow, like something pretending to be solid. His smile was too wide, too easy. Dane didn't smile like that. Dane's expressions were careful, controlled, hard-won. I froze mid-step, my hand already forming defensive binding threads. The false Dane's smile widened further. Then reality fractured around me like tearing fabric. Oh. The village square dissolved, became a labyrinth of writhing shadows. Thorny darkness that bled and pulsed with chaotic energy. The walls, formed from corruption made tangible. Breathing. Alive. Wrong. Male creatures didn't wield ink. Couldn't wield chaos. That was female magic. Binder magic. But this thing did. I could feel it. The inverse of normal dyads. Male chaos. Female order. Everything backwards and wrong. The shadow walls pulsed like living tissue, reaching toward me with finger-like tendrils. I wove a barrier, cut away the grasping darkness. It reformed immediately. I started walking, looking for an exit, looking for anything that resembled reality. The labyrinth shifted around me with each turn. Walls rearranging. Paths closing behind me. Opening ahead into infinite darkness. Time became meaningless. Had I been walking for minutes? Hours? I couldn't tell anymore. The walls pressed close. Too close. The thorny darkness wasn't just visual. It had texture. Substance. When I brushed against it accidentally, it felt wet. Warm. Like walking through the interior of something living. Something digesting. I jerked away, bile rising in my throat. The walls pulsed with rhythmic contractions, like a heartbeat, like breathing. The thorns writhed slowly, reaching toward me with deliberate hunger. I kept to the center of the path, as far from the walls as possible, but the paths were narrow, and getting narrower. A tendril of shadow extended toward my shoulder. I ducked away, felt it brush my hair, cold and wet and wrong. The sensation made my skin crawl. I walked faster. The labyrinth shifted around me. Rearranging, I turned left, then right, then left again. Each turn looked identical to the last. Same pulsing walls. Same reaching thorns. Same sense of being inside something that wanted to consume me. My boots squelched on the ground. I didn't look down. Didn't want to know what I was walking through. Another tendril reached for me. This one wrapped around my ankle before I could move. I gasped. Cut it away with a hastily woven thread of ink. The severed piece dissolved, but the walls shuddered like I'd hurt them, like they'd felt it. Then they pulsed faster, angrier. More tendrils reached. I had to keep moving, keep cutting, keep defending against the labyrinth itself. I turned another corner and saw him, Dane. Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly collapsed. He stood 30 feet away, culmination in hand, his back to me. Alive, real, here to save me. Dane, my voice cracked with desperation. He turned, and Seraphina was with him, pressed against his side, her hand on his chest. Her perfect face tilted up toward his with an expression of intimate familiarity. His arm around her waist, holding her close. They were looking at each other like I didn't exist. Dane? I said again, quieter, uncertain. He didn't acknowledge me, didn't even glance in my direction. Seraphina's smile was slow and calculated, her eyes never leaving mine as she reached down and slipped her hand into Dane's pants. I watched in horror as she wrapped her fingers around his pulling it out with a confident grip. Dane didn't resist. Instead, he leaned into her touch, his eyes fluttering closed briefly as she began to stroke him.
"Let's go, Dane,"
Seraphina purred, her voice dripping with satisfaction as she cast one last smirk in my direction.
"You and I have some unfinished business to attend to."
The labyrinth seemed to pulse in time with Seraphina's strokes, the walls throbbing with a sickening rhythm that matched the movement of her hand on Dane's. I could see the effect she was having on him. His breath quickened, his chest rising and falling rapidly as he succumbed to her touch. "Dane," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pulsating walls. "Please." They walked away, into shadow, dissolving. Illusion. Just illusion. But my chest ached like something vital had been torn out. The labyrinth swallowed me again. The walls constricted. I had to turn sideways to squeeze through the next passage. The living darkness brushed against my back, my front. I tried not to breathe too deeply. The air tasted wrong, metallic and sweet like rotting fruit. The thorns scraped against my uniform. Not hard enough to tear fabric, but enough that I felt them. Questing, testing, looking for weakness. One caught on my sleeve. I yanked free, left a thread of gray fabric behind. The thorn pulled the thread into the wall, absorbed it. The walls pulsed with satisfaction. I stumbled forward, breathing hard. My hands shook as I wove another barrier, thinner than the last. The ink was building. I could feel it accumulating with each defensive spell. How long had I been walking? The path opened into a wider space. Finally. Room to breathe without touching the walls. And there he was again, Dane, kneeling over a person, his head over their stomach. Hope surged. Maybe this was real. Maybe he was fighting his way to me, helping civilians along the way. I ran toward him, got closer. The person he was tending shifted, sat up. Serafina. She was nude, her perfect face and breasts on full display. Dane had moved lower. He wasn't tending to her. He was kissing her stomach, his lips trailing down to her navel and lower. As his head shifted lower still, I saw Serafina's eyes roll back in pleasure, her back arching as she gripped his hair, urging him onward. Dane's hands roamed her body, squeezing and groping with a hunger that made my stomach churn. He kissed and licked his way down to her thighs, his tongue tracing patterns on her skin that made her moan loudly. I could see the wetness glistening on her inner thighs, could hear the soft, obscene sounds of his mouth on her flesh. He parted her legs wider, his shoulders pushing them apart as he settled between them, his tongue delving into her with relentless fervor. The illusion faded like a dissolving shadow, leaving me alone in the pulsating darkness. The walls closed in again, the thorns reaching out with renewed hunger, as if feeding off the scene they had just displayed. I was left standing there, my heart pounding, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The image of Dane between Serafina's legs seared into my mind. The labyrinth seemed to laugh at my expense, the walls throbbing with a mocking rhythm that echoed the movements of their passionate encounter. I couldn't avoid touching it anymore. Each contact made my stomach turn. Warm, wet, alive. Like walking through intestines. Like being swallowed slowly. The thorns didn't just reach anymore. They clung. Wrapped around my wrists when I tried to push past. Tangled in my hair. Left cold, wet trails across my skin wherever they touched. I cut them away frantically. Used too much ink. Didn't care. Couldn't stand the sensation of them touching me. The black veins were spreading up my arms. Visible now, even in the dim, pulsing light of the labyrinth walls. I walked for what felt like hours. The black veins on my arms were spreading. I could feel the ink building. Poisoning. But I couldn't stop moving. Couldn't stop searching. For what? For him? For escape? For proof that any of this was real? The passages twisted, doubled back. I might have been walking in circles. might have passed the same spot a dozen times. Everything looked identical. Another corner, another opening. Dane's voice carried through the darkness.
Missed you.
I froze, moved quietly toward the sound. Hope and dread warring in equal measure. The shadows parted to reveal a doorway. Through it, I could see a room. His quarters, maybe. Intimate space made from memory and nightmare. Dane sat on the edge of a bed. Seraphina stood between his knees, his hands on her hips, her fingers threading through his hair.
I missed you too.
She whispered, then kissed him. Not a chaste kiss, not a gentle kiss. Then she dropped to her knees and pulled his out. Hard and large, she started to kiss it. He moaned in pleasure as he lay back on the bed. I couldn't look away. Couldn't stop watching my worst fears made manifest. Dane's hands tightened on Seraphina's shoulders as she took his into her mouth, her lips stretching wide to accommodate his size. She started with slow, deliberate her tongue swirling around the low and guttural, his hips already beginning to buck gently against her. Seraphina increased her pace, taking him deeper, her head bobbing up and down as she a symphony of desire that sent shivers down my spine. Her hands gripped the base of his shaft, stroking in time with her movements, ensuring that every inch of Dane's breathing grew ragged, his body tensing as she brought him closer to the edge.
Seraphina.
He gasped, his voice a mix of pleasure and warning.
I'm close.
She responded by taking him even deeper, her nose touching his abdomen as she swallowed around him, her hands gripping his ass, urging him onward. Dane's body convulsed, his hips thrusting upward as he neared his. The illusion began to dissolve. Seraphina's form shimmered and faded, her mouth still working his even as she turned to mist. The image shattered. I was on my knees. When had I fallen? The ground beneath me pulsed, warm and wet and alive. I scrambled to my feet, gagging. The ink was burning through my veins. I could feel it corrupting, fragmenting, turning my own magic against me. The labyrinth grew worse. The walls weren't just reaching now. They were grasping, pulling, trying to drag me into their writhing mass. A tendril wrapped around my waist. I cut it away. Another caught my leg. Then my arm. I was cutting constantly now, defending against the labyrinth itself more than any illusion. The living darkness wanted to absorb me, pull me into its mass and digest me slowly. The thorns left marks where they touched, not cuts. Worse, cold spots on my skin that wouldn't warm, places where sensation felt wrong, distant, like the numbness was spreading. How much of me could the labyrinth take before there was nothing left? I lost count of how many turns I took, how many times the walls shifted, how many dead ends I encountered. The labyrinth was endless, infinite, a trap designed to break me slowly. And it was working. I saw him again, and again, and again. Dane Seraphina, their synchronization perfect, better than ours. his hands adjusting her form with familiar ease. Dane and Rhea together. Her beautiful face lit with joy as their magic merged. His rare smile appearing for her. Dane with Cassia. She was crying prettily. He was comforting her with gentleness I'd never witnessed. His thumb brushing away her tears. Each vision calculated, precise. Showing me every woman who was better, prettier, more deserving. Every woman who wasn't me. The walls were so close now I couldn't walk without touching them. Had to press through the pulsing darkness. Had to feel it sliding against me with each step. The sensation was overwhelming. Nauseating. Like being coated in something vile that I could never wash off. The thorns didn't just touch anymore. They held, wrapped around my limbs and pulled. I had to tear free from each one. Leave pieces of myself behind. Not fabric anymore. The thorns were taking more than that. Each time I pulled free, I felt lighter, thinner. Like parts of me were dissolving into the labyrinth. Like I was being digested from the outside in. My magic was fragmenting. Each spell I wove felt wrong, unstable. The ink corrupting everything it touched, including me. I stumbled around another corner. This time the vision didn't wait for me to approach. It surrounded me. The labyrinth walls became transparent. On every side, in every direction, I saw them. Dane and Seraphina in his quarters. The lighting soft. Intimate. She wore only his shirt. It hung off one shoulder, revealing smooth skin. His marks visible on her throat. Proof of possession. Of intimacy I'd never have. He stood behind her, his hands on her waist. His mouth against her ear, saying things I couldn't hear but could imagine. Things I desperately wanted him to say to me. She turned in his arms, pressed against him, her hands sliding under his shirt, pushing it up. His hands tangling in her perfect golden hair. They moved toward the bed. The vision followed them. I watched, couldn't stop watching, as he laid her down gently. As she pulled him down with her. As they tangled together in sheets and shadows and everything I wanted. His hands mapping her body with reverent precision. Her back arching under his touch. Both of them lost in pleasure and connection and perfect synchronization.
This is what you'll never have.
Seraphina's voice said, not from the vision, from everywhere.
This is what you'll never be.
The vision multiplied. Every wall, every surface, all of them showing me the same thing from different angles. Dane choosing her, wanting her, loving her. Over and over and over. They came through the walls while I was still trapped watching. Monstrous versions of Seraphina and her cadre. Beautiful and terrible simultaneously. Forms shifting between perfection and nightmare. Seraphina's face too perfect, then splitting into teeth. Cassia's sweet smile turning predatory. Lyanna's muscles becoming claws. Millicent's desperate mimicry twisting into something genuinely frightening. I tried to defend. Wove barriers with shaking hands.
Look at you.
Seraphina's voice multiplied, coming from everywhere.
Common trash thinking you could compete. Thinking you were worthy of him.
Claws raked across my hastily woven barrier. I cut through the nearest illusion. It dissolved into black smoke. 3 more took its place.
He's mine.
The nightmare Seraphinas circled.
Always has been. Always will be. You're just a distraction. A momentary curiosity.
I wove faster, defending desperately. But the ink was building too fast. My emotions fragmenting under the relentless assault. "You're not real," I said, my voice shaking. "Does it matter?" Cassia's voice. Sweet and poisonous. Multiple versions of her laughing in chorus.
Real or not, we're speaking truth. You know we are.
I killed another illusion. 2 more appeared.
Did you see how he touched her?
Liana's growl came from behind me. I spun.
That's what he wants. Not you. Never you.
Did you really think he wanted you?
Millicent's desperate voice twisted into cruelty.
You're convenient, available, nothing more.
The visions adapted, multiplied. Dane choosing Seraphina over and over. Dane laughing at my presumption. Dane walking away without looking back. Dane in intimate moments with women who weren't me. Women who deserved him. Women who were everything I wasn't. Each vision felt like a knife. Each one confirmed what I'd always suspected. I wasn't enough. Would never be enough. The labyrinth pulsed around me. Triumphant. Feeding on my despair. The walls were so tight now I could barely move. The thorns wrapped around my throat, my chest, my legs, holding me in place. I tried to cut them away, but my magic wouldn't respond properly. The ink had corrupted too much. My spells dissolved before they formed. The living darkness pressed against my face, into my mouth when I tried to scream. Warm and wet and suffocating, I was being absorbed, digested, pulled into the labyrinth itself, and I was too tired to fight anymore. I didn't know how long I'd been fighting. Hours? It felt like hours. The ink was poisoning me. Black veins crawled visibly up my neck. I could feel them. Cold. Wrong. The corruption accelerating beyond safe levels. My magic was fragmenting. Discordant notes where harmony should be. Each spell I wove felt wrong. Unstable. The male creature's true form flickered at the edges of the shadow maze. Something massive. Writhing. Made of thorns and darkness and consuming hunger. I felt it reaching for me. Wanting to devour not just my body, but my sense of self entirely.
You're nothing.
You're nothing.
The voices merged. Became one. Became my own voice turned against me.
You will always be nothing, and he'll use someone royal you when you don't playing with common trash.
Another corner. Another vision. Dane and Seraphina. Always Dane and Seraphina. This time, they were casting together. Ritual convergence. I recognized it from the forms. From the way their bodies moved in perfect synchronization. The intimacy was overwhelming. Magic and souls merging. Pleasure building between them in waves. Higher and higher until I couldn't watch anymore. Couldn't fight anymore. My grip on reality was slipping. The boundary between self and illusion dissolving. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Couldn't remember why fighting mattered. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was nothing. Maybe I'd always been nothing, pretending to be something. The labyrinth had worn me down. Hour after hour of false hope and crushing disappointment. Hour after hour of watching him choose someone else. Hour after hour of proof that I didn't matter. would never matter. The shadow maze pressed closer, the creature's hunger intensifying. I stopped weaving, stopped defending. What was the point? The thorns reached for me, the darkness prepared to consume, and I almost let it. Then the darkness exploded outward with a sound like singing steel. Dane erupted through the false visions. The real Dane. I knew instantly. The way he moved. The precise control. The slight jerkiness from crystallization that the illusion had lacked. Time seemed to slow. He moved with lethal grace. Culmination already in motion before I fully registered his presence. Silver light blazed along the blade's edge, carving reality itself as he closed the distance. The male creature turned. Too late. Its appendages, those horrible reaching limbs that had been grasping for me, swept toward Dane in desperate defense. He cut through them like they were made of smoke. Precise. Surgical. No wasted movement. Each strike severed not just flesh, but the creature's connection to chaos. The appendages didn't just fall away, they dissolved. Unmade at the most fundamental level, I watched in horrified fascination. This was Dane Ashforge in combat. Not the controlled instructor. Not the crystallizing martyr playing at teaching. This was what he truly was. A weapon in human form. The creature tried to retreat. Tried to reform its illusions. Tried to show Dane visions that would confuse him, disorient him, buy it precious seconds to escape. But Dane didn't look at its projections. His crystalline eyes tracked only the real creature, seeing through deception with the same brutal clarity he brought to everything else. Culmination moved again. The blade found the creature's torso, pierced through chitinous armor that should have been impenetrable. Silver light erupted from the wound as cleaving magic poured through the opening. The creature screamed. Frequencies that made the abandoned buildings shudder. That hurt to hear. Dane twisted the blade. The magic detonated. I felt it even from where I stood. A pulse of pure severance radiating outward from culmination's point. Order asserting itself with absolute prejudice. Reality demanding that chaos cease to exist. The creature tried to hold itself together. Tried to maintain cohesion against the inexorable force of Dane's will made manifest. It failed. The corruption collapsed inward, imploding rather than exploding. The creature's form compressing smaller and smaller until it was just a fist-sized sphere of writhing darkness. Dane cut through it with one final strike. The sphere shattered into crystalline dust and black ichor, both evaporating before they hit the ground. The creature was gone. Just gone. The entire fight had lasted perhaps 15 seconds. Silence crashed over the village like a physical weight. Profound and absolute, Dane stood amid the remnants of destroyed illusions. Culmination still blazing with residual magic. His breathing was controlled, measured, like he'd just finished a training exercise rather than killed a creature that had been systematically hunting us. He turned to me, and something in his expression made my chest tighten. Not the cold instructor, not the distant martyr. Something raw, almost vulnerable, like seeing me in danger had cracked through his carefully maintained control. He crossed the space between us in 3 strides and pulled me to my feet. His hands gripped mine with more force than necessary. lingered longer than the action required. I felt him trembling, just slightly, just enough to notice.
Are you hurt?
His voice was rough, strained in a way I'd never heard before. No, My voice caught. Thank you for coming. I couldn't... The illusions were everywhere, and I couldn't tell what was real. Relief flashed across his face. Brief, but unmistakable. What took you so long? I asked, then realizing how that sounded. I mean, I know you came as fast as you could. It's just...
There was another one.
His jaw tightened.
Female. She caught me first, trapped me in...
He stopped. Something flickered in his crystalline eyes. Pain. Or maybe shame.
In illusions.
He finished. Clipped words. Military precision reasserting itself.
Crystal illusions. Showed me.
Another pause. Longer this time.
Things.
He said finally.
Things meant to keep me occupied while her partner dealt with you. Took me longer than it should have to break free and kill her.
But his hands were still shaking where they held mine. And he wouldn't quite meet my eyes when he spoke about the illusions. I saw silver dust at his collar, just beginning to accumulate. Black veins barely visible along my forearms where I'd been weaving bindings. Manageable levels, nothing critical, but enough to need addressing. The sun was setting. The fight had consumed hours we hadn't fully noticed. Shadows lengthening across the abandoned village in ways that made every structure look ominous.
The inn.
Dane said, still holding my hands. Still not quite meeting my eyes.
We need to rest. Transfer. We can't travel at night with this much accumulation.
I nodded. Didn't trust my voice. Because I'd just seen what Dane Ashforge truly was when everything else was stripped away. And it was terrifying. And magnificent. And I understood now why he was a legend. Why students whispered about him. Why the Empire wanted him at Sector 7. He was death-given form and purpose. And he'd used all of that lethal efficiency to save me. We made our way to the abandoned inn at the village center. Dane's hand still on my elbow, guiding me through the failing light. Neither of us speaking. Both of us acutely aware of the magic accumulating in our systems. Both of us knowing what would need to happen once we were alone. The third-floor room had a working hearth. Dane built a fire while I watched. My hands still shaking from the intensity of the illusions. The warmth felt real, solid, grounding me back into my body after hours of questioning what was true. I sat near the fire, let the heat sink into my skin. Dane sat across from me, the firelight casting dancing shadows across his face. "What did you see?" I asked quietly. "What visions did it show you?" He was silent for a long moment, his jaw working like the words cost him something. Silver dust glinted at his temples in the firelight.
You.
He said finally.
Versions of you.
"What kind of versions?" He looked into the fire, not at me.
Seductive versions. You telling me you loved me. You saying to forget the world and just come back to bed with you.
Heat flooded my face. Not from the fire.
Everything I desire.
He continued. Rough voice, raw honesty.
It showed me everything I want and know I shouldn't have.
How did you know it wasn't real?
I almost didn't.
He met my eyes finally.
I almost believed it, almost surrendered to the illusions. They were perfect, everything I've been trying not to want.
What stopped you? He was quiet, then turned to face me fully, his crystalline eyes catching the firelight.
It didn't feel like you.
What?
The way your magic moves, the rhythm of your breathing, the specific frequency of your chaos.
He leaned forward slightly, intent.
None of the visions got it right. I've memorized you, Liv. Every version that thing showed me was wrong because none of them were actually you.
The admission hung in the air between us, weighted with everything we'd been avoiding. You've memorized me, I repeated, trying to process.
Yes,
No hesitation.
the way you weave, the pattern of your channels, the sound you make when you're concentrating, the exact tone of your laughter, how you bite your lip when you're uncertain, the way your hands shake after intense casting.
He kept going, each detail landing like physical touch.
I know how your ink tastes when it flows into me. I know the temperature of your skin during transfer. I know that you cry during theoretical lectures when you're overwhelmed. I know you write poetry in your journal at night. I know you're terrified of dissolution, but more terrified of mediocrity.
I couldn't breathe, couldn't move,
I know you.
he said. Simple, final.
The illusions were perfect, but they weren't you. And I couldn't mistake anyone else for you anymore. Not after Corvus City, not after the equipment room, not after memorizing every part of you until the absence feels like losing a limb.
The firelight cast shadows across his face, made his crystalline eyes look almost human. Dane. His name came out broken.
I'm still not ready.
He held my gaze.
Still not sure I can choose life over martyrdom. Still not sure I deserve survival. But I'm trying, because you asked me to try. Because you make me want to try.
He reached across the space between us, his hand hovering near mine. Not touching, asking permission. I closed the distance, let our fingers intertwine. The transfer started immediately. Gentle, controlled. His ash flowing into me, my ink flowing into him. Equilibrium restoring slowly. But it wasn't enough. Not for the accumulation we carried. Not for what we needed.
We should transfer properly,
Dane said. Voice gone rough.
before the levels become dangerous.
Properly.
Full contact, like Corvus City, like the equipment room.
Like every time we'd connected and couldn't pretend it was purely medical anymore. Yes, I said. He stood, pulled me up with him. We stood close in the firelight, the abandoned inn around us, the empty village beyond, the world reduced to just this, just us. His hands found my face, gentle, reverent, like I was something precious instead of convenient.
Tell me to stop.
He whispered.
If you want to stop.
I don't want to stop.
Neither do I.
He kissed me, and the transfer flooded between us. Desperate. Necessary. Everything we'd been denying for weeks compressed into a single moment. Dane's hands slid from my face, tracing down my neck, my shoulders, my arms, as if committing every inch of me to memory. I shivered under his touch, my body already aching with need. He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine, his breath warm on my lips.
Liv.
He whispered, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through me.
I want to take this slow. I want to remember every moment.
I nodded, my hands reaching up to tangle in his hair, pulling him closer. Our lips met in a soft, gentle kiss, a stark contrast to the urgent, desperate kisses we'd shared before. This was different, slower, more intentional, as if we had all the time in the world. Dane's hands roamed my body, exploring every curve and line with a reverence that made my heart swell. He took his time, unbuttoning my shirt with careful precision, his fingers brushing against my skin, sending shivers down my spine. Dane's fingers worked slowly, deliberately on the buttons of my shirt, each one a torturously delicious tease. He took his time, drawing out the anticipation, his knuckles brushing against my skin with every button he undid. I felt the cool air hitting my exposed skin, contrasting with the heat of his body pressed against mine. His touch was electric, sending sparks of desire coursing through my veins, awakening every nerve ending. "Dane," I whispered, my voice already breathless with need. "Please." He shushed me gently, his lips capturing mine in a soft kiss that belied the intensity building between us. He didn't rush, didn't hurry. Each movement was deliberate, calculated to draw out my pleasure, to make me ache for him in a way I never had before. My shirt fell open, revealing my stomach, but he didn't push it off my shoulders. Instead, he leaned back, his eyes roaming over my body, taking in every inch of me with a hunger that made me feel both vulnerable and powerful. He pushed me gently against the table, his hands firm on my hips as he lifted me onto it. The cool wood a stark contrast to his warm touch. He knelt before me, his hands moving to my boots. He took his time, unlacing each one slowly, deliberately, his fingers brushing against my skin with every movement. I felt his ash flowing into me with each touch, cooling my chaos, grounding me in a way that only he could. My ink responded in kind, flowing back into him, our essences merging in a dance that was both familiar and entirely new. My boots thudded to the floor, followed by my socks, each item removed with careful precision. Dane's hands were everywhere, his touch feather-light as he explored my body, leaving trails of fire in his wake. I was aching for him, my core throbbing with need, my panties already soaked with desire. He stood, his body pressing against mine as he leaned in to capture my lips in a kiss that was both gentle and insistent. His hands roamed my body, tracing the curves of my hips, my waist, my ribs, always avoiding my breasts, my core, teasing me, making me crave his touch even more. Dane's mouth left mine, trailing kisses down my neck, my collarbone, his tongue tasting my skin, marking me as his. I felt his ash pouring into me with every kiss, every lick, every nip of his teeth. My ink flowed back into him, our magic spiraling between us, building, growing, becoming something neither of us could control. He pushed my shirt off my shoulders, his hands exploring my back, my sides, always avoiding my breasts, my core. I was squirming beneath him, desperate for his touch, for the release that only he could provide. My diamond hard, aching for his attention. My body begging for him to take me, to claim me, to make me his in every way possible. Dane's mouth moved lower, kissing my stomach, his tongue dipping into my navel, making me jump and gasp with pleasure. He skipped over my core, moving down to my thighs, kissing, licking, nipping at the sensitive skin, leaving me a writhing, desperate mess beneath him. "Dane," I begged, my voice hoarse with need. "Please, I need you." He looked up at me, his crystalline eyes dark with desire, a slow smile spreading across his face.
I know what you need, Liv.
He said, his voice a low growl that sent shivers down my spine.
And I'm going to give it to you, slowly, deliberately, until you're begging for mercy.
Dane's fingers moved to my pants, working on the button with the same deliberate slowness that had driven me mad with anticipation. He took his time, drawing out every moment, his knuckles brushing against my skin, sending shivers of desire through me. I lifted my hips slightly, helping him slide my pants down, my breath coming in short gasps as he revealed more of my skin. He pulled my pants off completely, leaving me in just my panties, the cool air hitting my exposed flesh, making me shiver with anticipation. Dane's touch was feather-light as he explored my body, his hands and mouth teasing me, driving me wild with need. Starting at my ankle, he placed a soft kiss on my skin, his lips gentle and tender. He moved upward slowly, his kisses leaving a trail of fire in their wake. I squirmed beneath him, my body aching for more, for the release that only he could provide. His mouth moved to my calf, then my knee, each kiss deliberate, each touch sending waves of pleasure coursing through me. I was soaked, my panties damp with desire, my core throbbing with need. Dane's kisses were torture, a sweet, delicious torture that had me begging for more. Dane's mouth moved higher, his kisses turning into slow, deliberate licks as he reached my inner thigh. His tongue was hot and wet against my skin, sending shivers of pleasure coursing through my body. With each lick, I could feel his ash flowing into me, cooling my chaos, grounding me in a way that only he could. His magic entered my channels through his lips, a sensation that was both soothing and electrifying. It was like drinking ice-cold water on the hottest day, a relief so profound it was almost... I felt my channels opening, welcoming his ash, absorbing it greedily. The addiction was instant, the pure bliss of his magic filling me, completing me in a way that nothing else ever had. As his ash flowed into me, my ink responded in kind, building up and then pouring out of me, flooding back into him. The sensation was incredible, a release unlike any other. It was as if every ounce of stress, every bit of chaos, every drop of anxiety was being drained from my body, replaced with his calm, his order, his strength. I could feel the magic leaving my body, a warm, tingling sensation that started in my core and spread outward, leaving me feeling empty yet utterly satisfied. It was an of its own, a release that left me gasping for breath, my body shaking with the intensity of it. Dane, I moaned, my voice hoarse with desire and the sheer overwhelming pleasure of our magical exchange. That feels incredible. He looked up at me, his eyes dark with desire and something more profound.
I know, Liv.
He said softly.
I feel it too. Every time. It's addictive, isn't it?
I nodded, unable to form words as another wave of pleasure crashed over me, my body convulsing slightly as more of my ink left me, replaced by his ash. Yes, I finally managed to whisper. Dane paused, his breath hot against my core, his mouth mere inches from my most intimate place. I could feel the heat of his breath through my panties, the anticipation building to almost unbearable levels. He hooked his fingers under the edge of my panties, pulling them down slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. He stepped back, taking in the sight of me spread out before him, my body glistening with desire. I watched him, my chest heaving with anticipation, diamond hard, my core throbbing with need. He looked at me with such intensity, such hunger, that I felt a surge of power and vulnerability all at once. Dane stepped forward, his body pressing against mine as he knelt between my thighs, his hands gripping my hips, holding me in place. I could feel the cool wood of the table beneath me, a stark contrast to the heat of his body, the intensity of his gaze. He started to kiss around my his lips soft and gentle, teasing me, driving me wild with anticipation. Each kiss was a torture, a delicious torment that had me squirming beneath him, begging for more. He moved closer and closer to my core, his breath hot against my sensitive flesh, his ash flowing into me with every touch, every kiss. When he reached the edge of my lips, he switched from kisses to gentle, feather-light licks. He started at the bottom, his tongue moving slowly up one side, then the other, each lick deliberate, each touch sending waves of pleasure coursing through me. I was soaked, my coating his tongue, my body aching for release. He paused just at the bottom of my entrance, his tongue barely touching me, the sensation almost too much to bear. I could feel his ash pushing into me from that fine point of contact, the magic sending shocks of pleasure through my channels, building an that was both magical and physical. "Dane," I gasped, my voice hoarse with need. "Please don't stop." He didn't respond, just continued his slow, torturous licks, his tongue moving up, until he reached my He paused there, his tongue lightly touching me, and I exploded. My hit me like a tidal wave, my body convulsing as waves of pleasure washed over me. Dane held me there, his tongue barely grazing my prolonging my release, drawing it out until I was shaking, my breath coming in ragged gasps. As I came down from my high, he started again, his tongue moving gently against my sensitive nub, licking left, then right, then center. Each touch sent sparks of pleasure through me, building me up again, the magic between us spiraling, our essences merging, swirling, building. I could feel his ash flowing into me with every lick. My ink poured into him, our magic creating a feedback loop that demanded more, faster, harder. I couldn't tell if the feeling of his tongue or the cooling of his ash felt better. "Dane," I moaned, my body tensing as another built, the pleasure almost too intense to bear. "I'm close, so close." He increased his pace, his tongue moving faster, harder, the room filling with the sounds of our passion, the wet slapping of his tongue against my flesh, my ragged breaths, and the soft moans that escaped my lips with each powerful lick. With a final, desperate cry, I came undone, my body convulsing around him as I released, my ink gushing back into him in a final, explosive exchange. Dane held me through it all, his tongue gentle against my sensitive flesh, his hands gripping my hips, keeping me grounded, keeping me safe. As I floated down from my high, I looked at him, my body sated, my magic balanced, my heart full. He smiled up at me, a slow, satisfied smile that made my heart flutter. "More?" I whispered, my voice hoarse but determined. "I want more." I looked down at Dane's crotch, seeing his straining against his pants, desperate to be free. He smiled up at me, a slow, teasing smile that promised endless pleasure. With deliberate slowness, he unbuttoned his pants, his eyes never leaving mine as his sprang free, large, long, and incredibly hard. I took in the sight of him, my breath catching in my throat. His was slightly crystallized with ash, the silvery sheen catching the light, making him look almost otherworldly. A drop of crystalline liquid beaded at his tip, glistening invitingly. I felt a primal need surge through me, a hunger that could only be satisfied by him. I need it, I whispered, my voice hoarse with desire. Dane stepped forward, positioning himself at my entrance. But he didn't thrust in. Instead, he slipped the underside of his against my slit, grinding against my teasing me, driving me wild. I could feel his ash flowing into me with every movement. My ink gushed out of me, wrapping around his like it was hungry for more. My magic wanted to pull him in. The sensation was overwhelming, a mix of pleasure and magic that left me breathless and aching for more. I came undone with a cry, my body convulsing as another hit me, the pleasure almost too intense to bear. Just as I reached my peak, Dane pulled back and rammed his into me, immediately starting another. My walls clenched around him, trying to pull him in deeper, to keep him there, to milk him for all he was worth. He started to thrust, his hips moving in a steady, deliberate rhythm. In and out, his filling me completely, then withdrawing, leaving me empty and aching for more. With each thrust, I felt his ash flooding my channels. With each withdrawal, my ink gushed into him, building higher and higher. I lost track of time, lost in the sensation of his moving inside me, the feeling of his ash filling me, his body pressing against mine. The world narrowed down to just this. Just us. Dane's thrusts became more urgent, more desperate, his body tensing as he neared his release. I could feel it building, the climax approaching like a storm on the horizon. Every nerve ending was alive, every sensation amplified by the raw, primal magic that surged between us. With a final, powerful thrust, Dane drove himself to the hilt, holding me close as he released. His pulsed inside me, his hot filling me in a rush that sent me over the edge, my body convulsing around him as I came undone, my ink gushing back into him in a final, explosive exchange. But this time, something more happened. A torrent of ash flooded my body, my magic channels pulsing and contracting as ink was gushed out of them into Dane's body. The sensation was indescribable, a mix of pleasure and magic that left me shaking, my body convulsing with the force of our release. We collapsed together, our bodies slick with sweat, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. The magic between us slowly subsided, leaving us spent and satisfied, our essences intertwined in a way that went beyond the physical. I could feel his heart beating against mine, his breath mingling with my own. Our bodies perfectly aligned as if we were made for each other. In that moment of release, we stopped pretending this was anything but choosing each other. Again and again, despite the impossibility, despite the fear, despite knowing it would hurt when it ended. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, we had this. Had each other. Had the warmth and the connection and the feeling of being known. Completely. Perfectly. Despite everything. And that was enough.